Okay, hi everyone. I'm here today with Dan Martinelli from the Entrepreneur Source. Thanks so much for joining me today, Dan.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for the
I'm
invitation.
really, I'm really excited to chat with you and just kind of give an insight to anybody who's interested in going into business for themselves, looking at maybe franchising options or what business can look like for them and how you can help them achieve those goals.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for the question. I think primarily it's my philosophy is it's for the client and their journey. So, I kind of serve as their Sherpa, if you will,
Yes.
and they learn a lot about themselves and there are many possibilities that exist within the network of businesses that I represent. And ultimately, as long as you're willing to discover and learn, usually people are very happy with the journey.
Absolutely. It's all about being coachable and having that motivation to move forward and see more for your future. So I can definitely appreciate that. Can you tell me a little bit more about your background and what inspired you to become a coach?
Yeah, so the inspiration is that I've been a serial entrepreneur literally since I was 13 years old, and I really believe that the spirit of entrepreneurship really separates the United States and other countries as well, but specifically the United States
Hmm.
in so many ways because you can be anything you want to be. Um, and one of the things that I have always practiced is um, leadership as a point guard, and to use a basketball analogy. Ultimately,
Yep.
I want to make sure that the people who I coach have all the tools that they need to be as successful as they possibly can be. When I played basketball, I was always proudest when I had more assists than points, and I kind of
Yes.
carried that leadership throughout my career. Uh,
Hmm.
the bulk of my career was spent in organ donation and transplantation. I served in senior leadership roles within the OPO networks here in the United States, as well as I spent about 15 years leading medical device companies specific to the transplant space. Um,
Okay.
and was very proud of the work that I did. Grew a company that was based in Gothenburg, Sweden, from roughly 5 million to over 500 million in the tenure that I was there, um, and had a lot of remarkable experiences in both companies. And ultimately, if I look at it, it was entrepreneurial in spirit. Yes, they were larger companies, um, but I had the resources and the support network of colleagues and bosses and clinicians that really helped me on my success.
Absolutely. That's very meaningful and purposeful work. So I
Yeah,
can see why you've kind of been led to not necessarily do the same thing in the same field, but be that coach and that support for somebody else. That's really powerful.
yeah.
Um, so I guess when working with clients, what's your process for understanding their goals and skills and financial needs as well before recommending different franchise options to them?
Yeah, and so I guess it's clear to be clear, like the way I help my client is that I'm not a matchmaker, if you will.
Hmm.
There are various coaching tools, thought exercises that I use that ultimately help my client really get a better understanding of who they are. You know,
Yeah.
not everybody sets goals or even knows how to set a goal, but ultimately the journey really begins with um, their willingness to learn and to
Hmm.
go on a journey of discovery. And it begins with an empowerment question of, where do they want to be a year from now?
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be longer than that, but where do they want to be a year from now? And then as our relationship deepens, they begin to learn more about themselves and kind of what the possibilities exist within the various pillars of businesses. And it's important because I'm not deciding for them. They're deciding for themselves. I'm just listening and reflecting and challenging when I need to. Obviously, we all have bias, and we all think, "Oh, there's no way I'm going to own a smoothie shop." Well, if the smoothie shop has is the gives them the ability to have their dream met, well,
Yep.
maybe that's the right possibility for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's and a lot of the times it is those businesses that you would think, "Oh, I don't know that I would ever consider that it could be a great fit."
Yeah,
I fell into franchising in the franchise world kind of by accident. It was definitely not something that I ever considered, but when when you open the door to learn and you get to discover everything that there is to this giant world that you never knew before and all of the different businesses that come into franchising, it's really interesting, and I feel like you could learn forever. So as long as you're willing to be coachable, again.
absolutely. And I think that the common theme of either of all the clients that I coach, there's either one of two outcomes. The first
Mhm.
outcome is they're like, wow, this has been incredible. I never really realized that there was so much out there that would be able to help me fulfill my, income or wealth and equity goals. And,
Yeah,
I really appreciate the time that you spent with me. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, business ownership isn't right for me. The other outcome is, oh my goodness, wow, this is awesome. I never knew I could do something like this, and the confidence that I have. And now I'm going to be on my own, and I love this particular possibility business that I found. Uh,
yeah,
Either way, it's a win-win because you learn about yourself or you fulfill your dream through added income or wealth and equity.
absolutely, absolutely. It's always great to get to know more about yourself and what your strengths are, and I think it's great that you help people realize that.
Absolutely.
Um, I guess then when it comes to evaluating and vetting franchises, what does that process look like for you before recommending them to your client? And what criteria do you find is most important to you when you're moving through those steps?
Yeah. Again, I think it's very important that my clients understand that this is their journey, and
Hmm.
the analogy that I'm their Sherpa
Yes.
through this journey of discovery. So I don't vet a franchise. It's not my place to vet a franchise. I let my client really discover on their own.
Yeah.
Ultimately, there may be times where I will challenge their bias or challenge their thinking, and ultimately, it's really with the intention of supporting their goal, the goal that they stated, not the goal that I stated. And so, um, most of the possibilities and the franchises that are within my network, the client is really surprised at how it meets and aligns with are what they need and want as their goal. Um, but I don't like matchmake. So that,
Right.
that's the important thing that I usually tell all of my clients. I'd say one of the biggest misconceptions about the word franchise, is that you can buy a franchise.
Right.
That doesn't happen. You don't buy a franchise. You're awarded the ability to buy it. So um, that that is usually an eye opener for the clients
Hmm.
that I work with when they realize, oh wow, okay, it's almost like an interview process. Well, in fact, it is an interview process.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's your money, but it's it goes to the point where I see the two benefits of offering franchises is that, number one, it comes with a playbook of instructions that really truly help the client be successful. Meaning,
Hmm.
if you follow these instructions, guess what? You have a high probability of being successful. And then
Absolutely.
on top of the playbook, you have a group of people who are on the foundation of your business that are right there on your left and your right saying, hey, Dan, you're doing something wrong, or hey, that's a great idea, or they're there to support your success.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
that doesn't exist if you're just gonna start your own business from scratch.
Yeah, that's always one thing that I'm always aware of when chatting with individuals is there's no need to reinvent the wheel. That's the beautiful thing about franchising is that you have that playbook, and
Yep.
if you're again willing to be coachable and you're interested in learning and bettering yourself, then you can be successful because you're not kind of going out on your own and discovering what works and what doesn't because we've been there before.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then, do you have an example of a challenging client placement, and how did you kind of work through that and find a way to find a good franchise fit for them? I know you said you're not a
Yeah.
matchmaker, but
I mean, yeah.
there's
Well,
situations.
yeah, I am a matchmaker in a different way. I would say that my wife and I, when we introduce couples, we're batting a thousand because they're all still married. So there's that. But when it comes to matchmaking a client to a business, I definitely don't do that. I would say really the largest challenge that I would say that is a common denominator among the clients that I have served in the past is
Mhm,
one, it's financial or fear. The
mhm.
financial, and both can be overcome. The financial challenges that many people have, if they have, I mean, if they have the desire to overcome those financial challenges, then I have resources that I offer to the
Mhm.
clients that are willing and interested in helping themselves, and I offer them to them.
Yeah.
They choose to work with a resource or not. If they choose to, I would say that in fact I have one great example of a young man who, high income earner, was unfortunately suffered from some things that happened during COVID, and he was in a little bit over his head, and
Mhm.
he is working diligently to get past that negative credit history to be able
Yep.
to because he sees the value of being his own boss,
Right.
of buying a franchise, and he's been able to continue to work towards that. We meet every couple months, just to make sure for us to have a pulse of where he is and how I can help him.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Which is great. And fear is something that each client faces fear. We all are fearful of taking that leap, right? Um,
Yep.
which and so that's something that usually through the discovery process and the conversation and the coaching tools that I use, fear is overcome, and
Mhm.
it's overcome because when you are educated about something, you usually know, oh, okay, now I know why.
Yeah.
Versus, and I'm not saying that fear is going to be completely erased. You're always going to have that. It's a little bit of butterflies in your stomach, I guess, if you will.
Yeah.
But
Means you care.
yeah, but ultimately, both of the financial and the fear,
Mhm.
can be overcome.
Yep.
And I would say the common denominator that I personally look for in all the clients that I choose to work with is grit. If a client
Yes.
has grit, I know for a fact that whatever challenge that they're faced with, they're going to overcome.
Mhm. Absolutely. Okay, so I guess that kind of leads me into my next question, and it's something that I'm interested to hear you speak a little bit more about then. So, how do you approach clients with different, I guess, varying financial situations or business backgrounds? I know you said you've been checking in with this individual for a few months, but are there any other situations where you can think of that you kind of had to tailor your approach to work with different clients?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. In the beginning of owning my business, I would say that there were many people who the biggest burden for them to overcome was financial, uh,
Hmm.
whether they had a poor credit score or didn't have any equity. and
Hmm.
not equity in their home, but liquid liquid assets to be able to invest in a business.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, going back to grit, if I saw a client who had grit in their DNA, I continued to work with them to help them reach their goal. But
Right.
I'm not going to work harder than my client. Um,
Right.
I might want it more than they want it for themselves, but ultimately they have to want it. And so, the way I help the client is, like I've said already, introduce them to the resources that can help them overcome, poor credit history or liquidity, um, and really just enable a learning process and to do it in a graceful, respectful manner. Um,
Right.
because I don't know, I mean, I'm never going to judge whether someone has a poor credit history or not. But if
Yep.
but if they have the desire to be in business for themselves, I'm going to give them the tools to overcome that poor credit history, to get to where they want to be.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Okay, so then kind of taking a positive spin on that, do you have a story or a particular client that has chose the right business for them and has found success? And I guess how much pride and how good does it make you feel when you're able to finally help someone fulfill the dream of going into business for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, so the right fit is obviously independent and is unique to every client. I can
Hmm.
I can say that the common denominator of finding the right business is the ability for, like, the benefit of me coaching, like my
Yep.
coaching of the client and then walking them through the journey enables the client to be ultimately define their vision and fulfill
Yeah.
their why. And so whether it's added income and or replacing their income or building wealth and equity, or it's possible that I just want a better lifestyle. So the the one example that I can share is I have a client who, um, through the journey, about a year, we worked together for about a year, and
Hmm.
he got to a point where he was he became more, self confident through the coaching that and the conversations that he and I had, which enabled him to say, "Oh, I'm gonna make myself available out there in the
Right.
world for maybe to be recruited." And so he got to a point where he said to me once, he's like, "Yeah, I'm not sure I want to continue because, I'm being recruited for a position." And
Hmm.
so through coaching, we went back and forth and, like, okay, well, what is it about the position versus what is it about you owning your own business? What are the pros and cons?
Yeah.
And ultimately through that conversation, it led him to continue down the road. He ended up buying a business that he never thought he would have bought, and ultimately, I guess the moral of the story is he listened to his coach, but he also listened to himself.
Hmm.
It's been about 6 months now since they've owned the business, he and his wife. And what is awesome is that his wife actually has taken a lead in the business, and now he's back at the position that he was being recruited for. And so
Okay.
the couple bought this business. The wife wasn't involved in the beginning, and now, she is leading the charge, and incredibly happy. They, as a couple, um, I would say that I'm really proud that they were able to get to a point of clarity, which is, we can do this. And
Hmm.
yeah, so that's one example.
That's amazing. That is something to be proud about.
Yeah,
Helping put people in touch with what can be their future and what can be a beautiful future for them, whether that is taking that position that they're being recruited for or through franchising, you're able to help them both do a little bit of what they love. So that's amazing.
Well, thank you for that.
Now,
Appreciate that.
yeah, absolutely. I guess my final question today, and I'm so interested to see what you have to say, is what are some common or what is the most common misconception that clients have about franchising, and how do you kind of address those situations?
Well, I would say the most common misconception is that people think that they can buy a franchise.
Hmm.
And once we overcome that misconception and they understand that it's more of a discovery of
Hmm.
almost like a almost it's almost like you're dating, if you will.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
I like the idea of business A, and yeah, maybe it's going to provide that that lifestyle that I'm looking for. And what is interesting is as the client goes through this journey and with me, they realize that the misconception of buying a franchise is certainly like you just can't do that. I would say that another maybe misconception is that it's all about like the big franchises,
Right.
McDonald's, or a lot of people think you can buy a Starbucks or Chick-fil-A
Yep.
etc. Yeah, you can buy those. Well, you can buy McDonald's and Chick-fil-A, but they're very expensive and um, they're very selective probably on who ends up with the ability of being awarded one of those franchises. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I would also say a misconception is when a client hears the name of a business and they're like, "Yeah, I don't think I would ever do that." And
Hmm.
and then I challenge them to say, "Well, remember what you said to me in the beginning of our relationship. I will keep an open mind and I will move. I will give 100%."
Yep.
And so I'm recommending this particular business because it meets your goal, and just have an open mind and learn. And a great
Absolutely.
example is the couple that I was telling you about. They never would have bought the business that they bought in the beginning if I hadn't challenged them, or if I haven't reminded them of, hey, remember what you said. Um, and now they're 6 months in and incredibly happy, and their goal is to be the number one franchise for 2026.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Well, I think this has been really helpful for anybody who's considered going into business for themselves. I think that this will be a really insightful, um, quick interview, just touching on some of those important points. And I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today, Dan. It was great to get to know a little bit more about you and kind of what your goals are when you're coaching other individuals. So
Absolutely.
I hope you have a wonderful day, and I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Have a good day.
Yep. Thank you.